Henry VIII removed one queen from power, but another queen could not be touched. This was not about love, it was not about anger, and it was not about mercy. It was about where royal power ended and who stood beyond its reach. Anne Boleyn did not enter the Tudor court with power of her own. She entered it through proximity. Her position was not built on land, foreign alliances, or inherited authority. It was built entirely on the favor of one man, the king. Anne was not born into a ruling dynasty. She did not arrive with the backing of a foreign crown. No army stood behind her name. No emperor watched her treatment with concern. Everything that elevated Anne came from Henry VIII's decision to elevate her. At court, this distinction mattered more than rank or reputation. Power did not belong to individuals, it belonged to structures, and Anne stood outside of them. As long as Henry needed her, Anne appeared secure. Her influence grew because the king's attention protected it, but that same condition made her position fragile. Once favor changed, nothing remained beneath it. There were no external consequences for removing Anne. No foreign court would intervene. No alliance would fracture. No war would follow. Her authority existed entirely within the king's reach, and therefore within the king's control. This is what made Anne removable. Not guilt, not temperament, not failure of character, dependency. At the Tudor court, survival depended on whether power extended beyond the king's will. Anne's never did. And when her usefulness ended, the mechanisms of removal were already in place. They did not need to be invented, they only needed to be applied. This is the first half of the contradiction. Henry VIII could remove Anne Boleyn because her power belonged to him, but that raises the deeper question. If one queen could be eliminated so completely, why was another allowed to endure? Catherine of Aragon did not depend on Henry VIII for her authority. She arrived with it already intact. She was the daughter of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, the rulers who had united Spain and reshaped Europe. Her bloodline connected her not only to Spain but to the most powerful dynastic network of the age. More importantly, Catherine was the aunt of Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor. At the height of his power, Charles ruled over vast territories across Europe. Any harm done to Catherine was not a private matter. It was an international signal. Henry understood this. Catherine was not simply a queen inside England. She was a political presence beyond it. Removing her violently would not have ended a marriage. It would have provoked retaliation. It would have invited foreign pressure, rebellion, and war. This was the boundary Henry could not cross. Even when their marriage collapsed, Catherine's position did not. She continued to be recognized abroad as England's rightful queen. Foreign courts did not accept her erasure. That recognition mattered more than Henry's personal authority. Power at court could be rearranged quietly. Power on the European stage could not. Catherine's survival was not kindness, it was necessity. Every decision surrounding her had to account for consequences far beyond the Tudor court. Henry could isolate her. He could control her movement. He could attempt to diminish her influence, but he could not eliminate her without paying a cost greater than he was willing or able to afford. This is what made Catherine untouchable. Not her virtue, not her patience, not her endurance. Protection. Her power extended beyond Henry's reach and therefore beyond his control. And yet, despite this protection, Henry still tried to remove her marriage from history, which raises the next question. If Catherine herself could not be destroyed, how far could Henry go in trying to erase what she represented? Catherine of Aragon was not only protected by blood and politics, she was protected by law. She had been crowned Queen of England in full public ceremony. Her marriage to Henry VIII was recognized by the Church, recorded by the state, and accepted across Europe. It was not a private arrangement that could be undone quietly. For Henry, this created a problem that power alone could not solve. To remove Catherine as queen, he did not simply need her gone. He needed her marriage to disappear. But marriages at this level were not dissolved by preference. They were upheld by legitimacy. The Church still mattered. Public recognition still mattered. Foreign approval still mattered. Annulling the marriage meant declaring that the union had never been valid at all, a claim that challenged years of accepted authority. It raised uncomfortable questions about succession, loyalty, and moral rule. If Catherine's marriage was declared illegitimate, then so was Henry's authority during it. and if his authority appeared unstable, his power weakened rather than strengthened. This is why the process stalled. Henry could not simply rewrite reality without consequences. Every attempt to erase Catherine's marriage exposed the limits of his control. Even as he separated her physically, he could not remove her symbolically. She remained queen in the eyes of Europe. She remained lawful in the eyes of many inside England. Power could isolate her, power could restrict her movement, but power could not undo what had already been accepted as legitimate. This distinction mattered deeply, because once legitimacy is broken, authority collapses with it. And Henry understood that destroying Catherine's marriage outright would do more damage to his crown than preserving it quietly, which leads to the next contradiction. If Catherine's marriage could not be erased without destabilizing the realm, how did Henry succeed in removing Anne Boleyn so completely and so efficiently? Anne Boleyn's removal did not unfold as an explosion of rage. It unfolded as a process. Once Henry's favor withdrew, the outcome did not require improvisation. The Tudor system already knew how to remove those who stood unprotected. Charges were assembled. Procedures were followed. The language of law replaced the language of affection. This is where power becomes most visible, not in anger but in efficiency. Anne was not eliminated through a single dramatic decision. She was processed. Accusations served a function. They created justification. They transformed a personal reversal into a public necessity. Whether the charges were believed mattered less than whether they were usable. This distinction is crucial. The court did not act emotionally. It acted administratively. Every step framed the outcome as lawful. Every document reinforced the appearance of order. By the time the decision reached the public, it no longer looked like choice. It looked inevitable. This is why Anne's fall appears swift in retrospect. The machinery did not need time to be built. It already existed. Power is most dangerous when it no longer needs explanation. Henry did not need to justify removing Anne to Europe. No foreign dynasty stood behind her. No legitimacy depended on her survival. The system could move without resistance, and so it did. Quietly, efficiently, without external consequence. This is what separates Anne from Catherine most clearly. Anne's authority ended where Henry's favor ended. Catherine's did not. Anne was vulnerable to procedure. Catherine was shielded by structure, which brings us to the final truth behind this contradiction. If Anne could be removed by administration, and Catherine could not be touched without destabilizing power itself, what does that reveal about how kings actually ruled? Henry VIII is often remembered as a king who ruled by will alone. But the difference between Anne Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon reveals something far more precise. Power did decide their fates, but only within boundaries that even a king could not cross. Anne Boleyn stood entirely inside Henry's authority. Her influence rose because he allowed it, and it ended because he withdrew it. Nothing external intervened. Nothing restrained the process. Catherine of Aragon existed in a different position altogether. Her authority extended beyond England. It was reinforced by law, by dynasty, and by international consequence. Henry could restrict her, he could isolate her, but he could not remove her without weakening his own legitimacy. This is the central truth. Kings ruled people, but systems ruled kings. When power operated within those systems, it moved efficiently. When it reached beyond them, it stalled. Anne's fate was decided quickly because no structure protected her. Catherine's endurance was enforced because too many structures did. This is why history remembers drama, but power operates quietly. It works through recognition, legitimacy, and consequence, not emotion. The Tudor court did not revolve around love or cruelty. It revolved around what could be done without collapse. And that is why one queen disappeared while another was allowed to survive. Not because one deserved it, not because one was spared, but because power